Hello, good morning. Good morning, people. Good morning. Today is Sunday. No, it's not. It's Saturday. We'll take that in editing, right? Okay. So today is Sunday. LOL again. Good morning. Today is Saturday, October 19th, 2024. And here we are in Pahrump or Pahrump-Kentucky. It's about 6 a.m., just before 6. Good morning, Wadabevi. Good morning, Diana. It's just about 6 o'clock. And again, Pahrump or Pahrump-Kentucky. To our west is Death Valley. To our east is Sin City. So here we are nestled between Death Valley and Sin City. Which way do we go? Well, today's talk for your viewing enjoyment is about suffering. Why is there suffering? Suffering, something we all experience, we think, we all care about. But what is it? It's time to have some coffee. So this is the most important topic. I'm going to try to unpack it in 15 minutes as I see it. Might have to continue to tomorrow, but we're going to try to unpack this thing about suffering because it's a topic in graduate school, a thing that we deal with in graduate school, in life, the people we deal with who are out here. And the starting question would be, is this all there is? We're born, a whole bunch of stuff happens, we suffer, and we die. And our answer is no. Nope, that's not what it is at all. So again, good morning. This is G.school, the Saturday and Sunday portion of our career planning, helping people, our students and other people move forward to the next, to the destination of this life. So good morning, Maticus von Atticus. You have been missed for the last several days. I was with Pastor Tony last night. He said he was going to reach you, a confirmation that tomorrow you are going to do that thing. Just do it. Just do it. But for our purposes, today we're going to talk about suffering. Before we do that, an 80-year-old advice from me: become the most positive and enthusiastic person you know. Right. Why not? Why not be that person? Why not be that guy? I can't think of a reason to not be that person. Today's TED Talk, Jill Bolte Taylor, that kind of goes along with this topic of suffering. Jill Bolte Taylor. Seth Godin, what is he talking about? What's Seth up to, man? Hey, man, what's Seth up to? I don't know. You tell me. Confused about good. Okay. What do we mean by good? Do we mean lack of suffering? How often do we assume that popular things are good and that good things become popular? Always, right? How about always? We basically always assume that popular things are good. That's why they're popular. And good things become popular. If it's good, it's going to be popular, right? If your work doesn't catch on, does that mean it wasn't good? Yes. No. No. The answer is no. In almost every field, people with insight, taste, and experience admire and emulate good things that aren't popular and are surprised by popular things that aren't good. TikTok, is it popular? Yes. Is it good? No. Temu, is it popular? Yes. Is it good? No. Why not? Well, because it leads to idolizing, worshiping something other than God. And that could go for Walmart too. If your weekly routine on Sunday is, no, we need to go to Walmart because we need stuff, perhaps we need to broaden our definition or narrow it so we can be clear about what we mean. What we mean by what is good. Okay, cool. That's Seth Godin. Jill Bolte Taylor, Harvard scientist, one morning had a stroke. What is that? Broken blood vessel in her brain. Because she was a brain scientist, the nature of the thing, she knew what was going on, was able to articulate it as a brain scientist. So she tried to understand what was going on as it was happening. And since then has gone on to share that. And it's the experience of the left side of the brain shutting off and just having the right side of the brain working and experiencing and describing what life is like when only the right side works and then the left side kicks back in. We don't watch it for the purpose she watched it. She watched it to say we should step into that space, but she never says how. And that space is we're all connected. We're all one. I'm not an individual me. It's it's not what Ramachandran calls, but it's parallel. It's in alignment with when Ramachandran is talking about Gandhi neurons. Jill Bolte Taylor, what she's talking about when it's just the right side of your brain, when we are all just connected, is very much in alignment with Ramachandran describing Gandhi, what he calls Gandhi neurons, where we are literally, our brains are literally connected with one another. It's just the fact that we're in separate bodies and we think we're separate. That's what makes the difference. But if you get rid of the feedback loop, if you get it so that we don't know that we're separate, then, oops, as Lucy would say, oops, then you get into that state somewhat described by Jill Bolte Taylor. But anyway, time is racing. It's 8 minutes in. Haven't even started to talk about suffering. So Matticus von Atticus, Untersergeant Ordinaire. Are you going forward tomorrow? If you're having cold feet, A, don't. B, text Pastor Tony. Okay, suffering. What is it? Why should we care? Okay, number one, I think we get the wrong, we have the wrong perspective on suffering. So it's not really suffering. And how do I say that? Why do I say that? Well, if you think about eternity, which we can't really do, but we can think about 13.8 billion years. And we can put that into something where we can make sense of it. And we've talked about this before, including this week. 13.8 billion years. If you were going to walk that distance and every step was 1 million years, it would take you almost 8 miles. That journey would be about an 8-mile journey. That's just 13.8 million years, the age of the universe. It would be 8 miles. That would be about a 2-hour walk on flat land. 2-hour walk on flat land, that's 13.8 billion years. That's a million years in a 3-foot space. 3-foot space. If you take that 3-foot space, that million years, and say, okay, how much of that 3 feet is 100 years? Say a life of a healthy person, just to make it easy. Well, 100 is 1/10,000th of a yard of 3 feet, or of a million. 1/10,000th of a million. So 100 times 10,000 is a million. Now, how big is 1/10,000th of a yard. It's about the width of a hair on your head. So our life is equal to the width of a hair on your head compared to an 8-mile journey. And that's not eternity. That's just the age of the universe. So if your life was total suffering here, if it was absolute 100 years of suffering, which isn't really possible, but if it was 100 years of suffering, that's nothing compared to an 8-mile journey. That would be like me saying, will you take $5,000 if I can punch you in the arm hard so it hurts? You're not going to break anything, no permanent damage. In 2 weeks, you'll be back to normal. Everybody would say, yeah. Why? Because the pain, when you understand it's 2 weeks versus 5, what's all the good I can do with 5,000? What are all the things I can do with $5,000 versus 2 weeks of pain? Yeah, I'll do it. 100 years of suffering compared to an eternity of eternal bliss, it's not really suffering. We're looking at 100 years in minutes. Oh, I've got a minute of suffering. Oh, wow. You're going to poke a red hot iron in my eye for a minute. Oh, no. Well, that's nothing compared to eternal life. I'm not proposing doing that. But so what we think of as suffering isn't really suffering. In the big scheme of things, it's nothing. It's a blip. Well, why is it there? Randomness. We have a gift of life. We have the opportunity to do something. Jesus tells us if you do this, this, and this, you will have everlasting life with my Father and me, with the Creator and I. You'll have everlasting life. All you have to do are these 3 things. Well, but life is random. God doesn't interfere with our lives. We get to live them. And some people have less suffering, less struggles than other people. That's it. It's what you do. So what do we know? We know from Stoicism and other things, it's what you do when you're faced with it that counts. It's what Viktor Frankl's talking about, giving life meaning. We can't control the stimulus, but we can control how we choose to respond. So, randomness of life, everybody can't have the same level of suffering or non-suffering. Everybody can't be the same. There's got to be randomness in there where some people have more, some people have less. But in the big scheme of things, what we call suffering is not suffering. It's nothing compared to eternity. And one way to look at it is if you suffer well, that's going to be sooner that you're going to get where you want to be. And if you look at it another way, if you don't suffer, it's what Jesus said. It's harder for a rich man to get to heaven than a camel to go through an eye of the needle. Go through the eye of the needle. Why? Because you have a lot of other temptations. When you're suffering, your focus is ending the suffering. They're in quote suffering. So, why is there suffering? Well, A, it's not really suffering. We just think it's suffering because we're looking at a really short time horizon. We're looking at minutes. We're looking at hours, days, years. We're not looking at millions of years. We're not looking at the width of a hair on your head compared to an 8-mile walk. Number one. Number two, why is it there? Well, because there's randomness. God, it doesn't make sense that the Creator is going to have a plan for people. Yeah, his plan is I'm giving you a gift and you do with it what you want. If you want to join me, here's the 3 things you need to do. Boom. Okay? Now, there is suffering. There is this stuff we call suffering. And I propose, think about it today, kind of plant the seed, think about it today, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. If you look at suffering as an opportunity to do what Jesus said. What did he say to do? Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Okay, well, if you're in suffering, you could reach out, you could pray, you could do whatever. That's one thing. Love one another as I have loved you. How do I do that? Well, I help the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the unhoused, the sick. and people incarcerated. Help those. James, not red letter, James says helping orphans and widows. By definition, and by our definition, what are orphans and widows? People who suffer. Right. I would say it's another way of saying the old who suffer, the old women who suffer, and kids who suffer. Okay, so now here, Diana, so instead of saying I think of it like sacrificing, think of it as an opportunity. Put a positive spin on it, not a negative spin. Put a positive spin. It's an opportunity for me to help other people. It's an opportunity for me to do what Jesus said to do. Help the hungry, thirsty, naked, unhoused, the sick, people incarcerated. Help those people, help orphans and widows. It's an opportunity to do that, to relieve their suffering. So suffering isn't really suffering, it's an opportunity to do what we say we're going to do, because it's easy to be nice to someone. It's easy to give somebody a loaf of bread when you never have to worry about having a loaf of bread. Like you can just get a loaf of bread whenever you want. Giving you something. If you don't have a loaf of bread and you're hungry and you're sick and you're thirsty and you're naked and you're homeless and you're an orphan or a widow and you're all of those things, and to help other people who may not even be as worse off as you, as bad off as you, that I think is what Jesus commands us to do. To be that person. To be that person. So we're going to try to unpack this again tomorrow. Things to think about. Try to just spend some time thinking about suffering. About, take your idea about suffering. So what I don't want to do is get into a debate about, was my version of suffering right or wrong? Assume my version of suffering is right. Assume everything I'm saying is right. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying assume it's right. Assume it's right. Let's have a discussion tomorrow to see if we can poke any holes in it. Let's not start from the assumption that it's wrong. Assume it's right. And what are some holes in the idea that it's not really suffering? 1/10,000th of a million years compared to a million years, 1,000 would be a billion, 13.8 thousand times more than that. So 1/10,000th versus 13,000 times more. Okay, what does that mean? Well, our life is 1/10,000th of a million years, and 13.8 billion years is 13.8 thousand times more. So whatever we consider suffering is not suffering. Yeah, if you look at it in the minute, it's suffering. If you look at it over the eternity, not suffering. And I would say that's why people would go into battle pre-1900, because they believed, what's the big deal? If I die well, I'm going to have eternal life. If I die well, eternal life. If I die badly, if I have this gift and I decide, the pain is too much, which is a legitimate thing. People feel that way. If the pain is too much, I want to end the pain now. Not really good. Understandable, not really good. Understandable, but not really good. Be more samurai. Karate chop chop. Austin Powers. Right, be more samurai. So suffering, let's try to think of it as in a different way. It's not suffering, it's an opportunity. Suffering is just the randomness of life. That was the lot I got. I get some good, I get some bad. It's what do I do with the suffering? How do I respond? That counts. Okay, we're at almost 20 minutes in. Okay, so we can have a discussion about that tomorrow. Be more samurai. Yeah. Bum. And with that, I'm going to say